Hey, it's Bones for Brains, and today we're going to be talking about genetically modified organisms, and of course the gene science that comes with them. So, to start off, genetically modified organisms. It's been a hot topic as of recently with the advent of CRISPR and gene modification. But what exactly is a GMO or genetically modified organism? Well, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's when the genes of an organism have been altered for purposes of, whatever intention. So, for example, some reasons to have GMOs could be to better suit the animal in differing environments, such as to help crops live through the changes that come with climate change, or to help crops to better defend against pests or even survive pesticides, which has been the majority of the GMO action taken up until this point. However, GMOs aren't exactly just in a lab. GMOs have been around for as long as we have been scientifically breeding things and, doing the selective breeding. So genetically modified organism just refers to something that's been changed genetically, but more specifically it refers to things that were done in a lab. So some of the reasons that people are a bit worried about GMOs, specifically within food, is because people are worried about the specific toxins that can come with it. For example, if you're breeding in a crop to become more pesticide resistant, to have its own natural pesticides, what could that mean for humans? Does it mean that it's going to be toxic to us? And a quick and short answer for the majority of that, this is not a all-encompassing statement, is that not really. The toxins that we would tend to put into to help reduce that could be something as simple as caffeine. Caffeine is toxic to a lot of insects, as well as chocolate. Chocolate is toxic to cats and dogs, and it's perfectly fine for humans to eat. Humans are incredibly versatile in what we can eat, and so that's part of why we have such a diverse amount of things and foods that we consume. Is just it was really helpful in our survival to be able to do so. So thus, it's not as big of a deal as sometimes it can be made out to be. And GMOs have been incredibly helpful with, developing the world and helping things to be more cost effective and less pollution, all that good stuff. However, some things that I personally want to talk about with GMOs is the science behind possibly eventually using them for things such as Jurassic Park or bringing back prehistoric species, and why that hasn't been done yet. So, as far as I understand, with the current technology that we have with CRISPR and with other similar gene service or gene medicine practices that we have, GMOs and genetic modification is only just beginning to work its way into human trials with very promising results. I believe it's Dr. Howard Wu is working on, there's a presentation coming up on the CRISPR developments, and he will be presenting about the recent developments in using this new gene-modified medicine in human trials and working to curb some diseases. So now this is really exciting, and it kind of begs the question, if we're able to put ears on mice and make it so a chicken has teeth again, like a dinosaur, then why don't we have full-fledged dinosaurs yet? Recently there was a aquatic dinosaur, I forget the exact name, but it's, one of the long-necked ones that seemed to soar around on the ocean floor, that was discovered to have soft skin tissue, and we were able to discover the specific types of plating it may have had, having scales on its outer fins while having soft skin on some other parts of its body similar to that of a turtle. So the question becomes, why haven't we started to begin gene development if we have the stuff to do it we have the stuff to recreate the woolly mammoth, we have the stuff to recreate the prehistoric human, we have the ability to recreate all these animals, why simply haven't we? Well, to begin, first of all, it's not entirely that easy. A lot of soft tissue could also be damaged, and of course, as we know, there's of course the possibility for cancerous cells. Cancerous cells are cells that have had their shut off, stop functioning portion disabled essentially through the cell's damage. And so they're essentially zombie cells. So, cells that may have survived may be damaged beyond ability to work. Furthermore, it is, of course, a absolute ton of ethical concerns. The ethics within the science community as of right now are, very well maintained as far as I understand, and there's not really that mad scientist stuff going on right now, which is, I'm grateful for. in the long run, even though I do think, you know, even though I know that Jurassic Park is a really bad idea, it still sounds really fun. Which is just, you know, me being a weirdo. And additionally, you know, of course, I feel like the Jurassic Park series does a really good job at sometimes including the possibility for, you know, of course, dangers that arise with that, but also the possibility for really weird hybrids. In the most recent iteration that is going to be coming out soon, they are going to be having the a new mutant that is going to be displayed, and it's expanded upon in the book series and in some of the other things, that mutants are definitely possible. Especially when you're mixing DNA. And this is something that is going to, you know, be expanded upon, and I think it's a really good thing to consider. You know, that one's experiments might not always turn out the way that we expect them to, and that gene splicing is still a long way off from being perfect. You know, of course we can genetically modify plants to other plants, but it's not as simple as, you know, taking 15 different species and smashing them together. Quick little detour, back when I was a kid, I used to be absolutely obsessed with genetics, and I used to love learning everything I could about genetics. I wanted to be a gene therapist, and a large part of that is that I was incredibly obsessed with dinosaurs. Even now I have my little dinosaur earrings, and I have always enjoyed, you know, large reptiles. As I got older, it progressed onto dragons, and, you know, all that good stuff, but I've always enjoyed the idea of these animals being to come back through, you know, snippets of blood, mosquitoes from amber, or other means. So my plan as a child, my ingenious plan, was to have a, was to use, you know, kind of Frankenstein this animal together, is to, genetically modify the mind of a puppy with the wings of a bat, with the body of an alligator. Such a great idea. And this is, of course, you know, a kid who's never learned about genetic, or not genetic, but like medical malpractice. But, you know, looking back, I'm able to kind of critique my younger self's, you know, plan there and give a bit of advice instead upon how the best workaround would be to that. And I would challenge, you know, viewers in the audience to maybe, if you had some sort of crazy dream about, you know, doing something when you were younger, like, oh, well, I wanted to, you know, go to space, and I don't see why these astronauts don't just do this, this, and this, and it's really easy, they just don't think of it, you know, just, you know, transfer the, whatever in the in the stratosphere, just use different, compactments, and just have trees on board. Why don't you just have trees on board, and you have oxygen the entire time? Well, you know, it's not quite that easy, I'm guessing. Could very well be. But that's my point. My point is that, I feel like as we get older and as we learn more in the scientific community, it is important to revisit those childlike dreams and even the dreams of other children, and not so much dismiss it as, oh, that's sweet, you know, that's a great idea, and more so go into the actual science of why their idea might not work, and then go into how it could work. So something that I thought would be a really fun segment to do here. And so, for example, for dragons, genetically engineering dragons would be a massive task and have so many small things that would not work very well. However, if we were to do it, let's just say, for the sake of talking, that this is a simulation, and everything we know about genetics is put into the simulation through the wonders of AI, even though I don't really condone AI. AI sucks, for things besides, you know, just messing around. I don't condone AI art, of course, I'm an artist. But, say AI managed to make this perfect model where we could figure out what would exactly happen if we were to mix genomes together. So to begin, primarily making sure that it's all in the same genome, or, you know, same species, generally, same family. So for example, you don't necessarily want to mix a lizard with a mammal, or any other major, like, you know, hot blood, cold blood, hot-blooded, cold-blooded, you know, all that good stuff. You don't want to mix those two. And so that's why I think that that would be the first good step, is to prioritize maybe making an entirely mammalian dragon, focusing on mayhaps using like a mixture of different, you know, maybe like a weasel to get that long lookingness, and then, you know, bat wings. Or even just solidly going full kaiju route and trying to figure out something with an alligator. However, for this mind experiment, I'm going to stick with a bat, because primary thing is, of course, there's wyverns. Wyverns are a great example of what was the most likely, if we're looking at purely within the animal kingdom, for dragons to have actually looked like. Because we have pretty much all of the, mammalian or reptilian animals that we see today are four-limbed. You don't really see like a six-limbed animal, and that's why the more traditional dragon that we think of with the head, the two front legs, two back legs, and the wings, is less likely, because it would be more arthropod, like an ant with the six appendages, and that's not exactly what we're going for here. So, and all that being said, focusing on a bat as the primary candidate would be a good starter thing. Secondly, not necessarily needing to mishmash in together different species so much as just tweaking what's already there, and scientifically working through the gene to figure out okay, if we highlight this one bit, then we can get more pronounced XYZ. So for example, as we just breed out, or breeding plants today, we can figure out how to make our crops yield larger harvests, and we can figure out how to make cats have fluffier coats. And from that logic, we could also likely figure out it'd be rather easy to engineer a bat to have, for example, maybe a larger growth protruding out of their head similar to horns, or to change around their appearance a bit to look a bit more like scaly, or altering them to be, of course, a bit bigger. There's always those flying foxes, which are gorgeous creatures, by the way. Highly recommend looking at flying foxes if you've never looked at one, because they're beautiful. Anyways, but it would be a lot easier to do that than to worry about trying to mix whole other genomes together, because then you'd have to isolate specific parts of their genetics and cut that out, and that takes, of course, a long while. So just focusing on highlighting what's already there. Thirdly, something that I did back as a child that I thought would work perfectly was simply taking the brain of another animal and putting it into another one, very Frankenstein. Something that could much more likely be implemented is simply working on the behavioral centers, and working not to necessarily replace with another more docile animal so much as alter the brain chemistry on a fundamental area, just to make it a lot more docile and caring. So for example, it might be beneficial to make the test subject a female bat, or maybe even not, because females tend to protect their young, but trying to focus on finding one that is less aggressive. For example, again, flying foxes are only purely focused on finding their fruit typically, and most bats don't attack humans. Even vampire bats, it's a common misconception that they don't go for humans, because it's just very inconvenient, or weird little creatures. They want to go for cows or something. Anyways, but yeah, so not so much focusing on changing out the brain, but so much as just using different medicines to keep the animal docile, or even just not really worrying too much about behavior, and maybe just selectively breeding that out if we're doing the selective breeding, not survival of the fittest per se, but just selective system with this, because that would allow for a more controllable, easily well foreseen end product. And so the thing is, though, through all of this, oh well, we made a dragon, we made a 6-year-old girl happy, good job, you also ruined 17 bats' lives. So that's all to say, it is, I think a big part of science is considering the potential risks and the potential betterments and harm to humanity. And that's, for example, why we do see those experiments that include with rats, oh well, they're growing ears on the backs of mice and different things, and that shouldn't be allowed if dragons are allowed. As much as I would love dragons, it's not exactly, the mice and the different organs in them could prove to be something vital for the world of prosthetics, and possibly in the future just the world of regrowing things. I mean, only recently you've discovered that in period blood there's stem cells. I don't think you understand. Stem cells can literally cure cancer. Like that. It's incredibly helpful, and now that we know this, we can have so many other medical advancements. But that's the point. Medical advancement for the purpose of medical advancement is the only way we can justify taking lives of small creatures within the medical community, as far as I know. So I say all that to say, yeah, it's really, really cool. And so, of course, as a final closing segment, I just want to talk about some of my other favorite genetic experiments that are in common media. Of course, experiment 626, which is I feel like it's not really discussed in the movie, but it's just, consider how freaky that premise is with the, yes, genetic experimentation and multiple, like, over 600 experiments to create the most hatred-filled life form one can possibly make. And then he never really turns good. Jumba just continues to be a complete menace to society, which I think is a great, like, world-building thing to add in there. And I feel like it would be great to continue to expand upon the possible dangers and horrors of the world, but I feel like that's just me. Additionally, there's, of course, other areas where the genetic mutations are factored in. I feel like that's a large part with the, going back to like the zombie virus video, even on a small scale with the diseases, it's something that should be, I feel like, explored more, because it is kind of terrifying thinking that just, we're only a couple of generations away from complete annihilation at any one point, which is fun. Good thing to think about. And then I can't really think of many more, but if you guys have more, definitely leave them down in the comments, because I would love to continue to talk about these. And yeah, thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed the video, even if it was a bit more chaotic than usual. And have a lovely evening, or morning, whenever you're watching this. Love you guys. Bye!